I know, I'm the last skeptic standing about Tuesday's election. I can read, I can hear, but bear with me, because I am so not convinced by the thing that was supposed to convince me about the process and disenfranchisement this time. Early voting, it was supposed to make things better this time, right? Well, look at these lines. In Georgia, people waited 8 hours to cast a ballot today. There are reports of 5-hour waits in Indiana. In North Carolina, the State Board of Elections ruled voting sites can stay open an extra 4 hours tomorrow to accommodate big crowds. And in Oklahoma, the first voter at the Oklahoma County Election Board reportedly showed up at 4:30 a.m., even though the polls didn't open until 8 a.m. Here's the thing. A day-long wait might as well be a poll tax. What does it cost you to wait 8 hours in line? Is the way our democracy works now that we're a country where only people who can afford to give up 20% of a week's pay are allowed to vote? And while Obama is leading in the latest AP poll on early voting, the McCain campaign says they are not worried. John McCain's deputy campaign manager, Christian Ferry, points to Nevada, a state where Kerry led Bush in early voting in 2004, even though he ended up losing that state.
In 2004, first time in new registrant Democrat voters made up 13% of all the early votes cast. Thus far in 2008, it's about 12.6% of all the early votes cast.
The McCain campaign says their internal polling numbers say Iowa is a dead heat. That's another place Kerry led in early voting, but ultimately lost the state to Bush. In Pennsylvania, here's what the McCain campaign is thinking. This is Christian Ferry again.
In Pennsylvania, if you look at absentee ballot returns, the GOP is leading, by about 56% to 44% in terms of returns. Younger Democrat voters in 2004 made up 22.9% of the absentee vote. Thus far in 2008, it's 14% of the 14.6% of the early absentee vote.
See why they're confident? You want more of this? Come on, vegetables are good for you. We'll have dessert later, I promise. An Orlando Sentinel analysis of early voting in Florida found that, quote, young people are turning out in disproportionately low numbers, making them the worst performing demographic group. The Orlando Sentinel says only 15% of early voters in Florida are under the age of 35, even though that group makes up a quarter of the electorate. All that talk in the Democratic primaries about how young people were proving the haters wrong by actually showing up to vote, even though the stereotype says that they don't. Well, is the stereotype going to turn out to be right? Time for a talking down here. Clearly, here to try to talk me down is Florida Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, whose district includes parts of Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, happy Halloween. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you, Rachel.
So here's your chance to talk me down. Tell me that young people secretly are turning out in huge numbers to vote, or that the Democrats weren't really counting on them anyway or something. What's going on here?
No. Let me tell you. I just came from trick-or-treating with my kids, and I'm really glad to be here with you to help talk you off the ledge. Because just to give you an example, about 25% of the early vote in Florida so far has actually been sporadically voting Democrats. So we expect many more of those Democrats to come to the polls, by Election Day. And, comparatively, to 4 years ago, they have exponentially increased their percentage of the turnout. In addition to that, you have in overall totals for early voting in Florida, 45%, a little more than 45% of the turnout in early vote has been Democrat, and about 38% has been Republican. So what we're doing is executing our plan here in Florida. We have a ground game that is second to none. The largest ground game, grassroots outreach turnout operation that we have ever had in Florida history. And that is going to be churning all weekend long. We have thousands of volunteers going across Florida, Rachel, knocking on doors, turning those votes out. And I can tell you that I really believe that youth vote is going to surge through the weekend and into Election Day, because everywhere I go, the youth vote is very, very motivated and planning to go to the polls. So I'm really feeling incredibly good about what happens on Tuesday in Florida.
And the hope is that it is just youthful procrastination, leaving it off till the last minute, I guess, at this point. Honestly, I think you have to think about the fact that kids have class. The younger
younger voter has a lot going on in their lives. They have classes that they have to go to. With a very long line, it is difficult for often because they're trying to vote in between classes for them to stand in the lines. But we have extended voting hours over the weekend. Governor Charlie Crist, to his credit, extended the voting hours with an executive order. So we have 12 hours of early voting this weekend, and I think we're going to really be able to get those kids to the polls.
The images of the lines and the reports of people standing in lines are, for me, it's sort of heartbreaking, just in a small d democratic way. I don't want our elections to be like this anymore. I don't want there to be this effective poll tax where people have to, give up a day's wages or a half day's wages in order to exercise their right to vote. Are you hearing a lot of complaints from your constituents? Do you think that it is affecting people's calculation about when they go to vote?
Well, I have heard people express concern, but that was really earlier in the week before the voting hours changed. When Governor Crist issued that executive order and expanded the polls being open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. until tonight, and then 12 hours over this weekend, it broadened out the lines and made it a little bit easier for people to have time to go vote. So I actually have heard, even though I've heard people saying, "Wow, I wish we didn't have to wait so long," I have not heard a single person say, "Forget it, I'm just not going to be able to vote if I have to wait that long." People are determined to vote. They're hanging in there. They're standing in line. I brought literally a few hundred people to vote from the condos this week. And Rachel, I had people who were over 100 years old. Little old ladies in my district who were over 100 years old, sitting in chairs, inching along the line. They were going to wait as long as it took because they want to move this country in a new direction so badly, and they know that this is the most important election, even of their lives, as many presidential elections as they've seen in their lifetime.
I got to say, the way that it makes me want to move the country is toward a country that doesn't make little 100-year-old ladies wait in lines in order to vote. We've got to get this thing fixed. We've absolutely got to get it fixed.
We do, and I think what we'll do is, I'm certain what we'll do when we'll have an expanded Democratic majority in the Congress. Steny Hoyer, who was the sponsor of the Help America Vote Act after the last election, will make sure that we put in a new Help America Vote Act. We've got to address the length of time it takes to vote. We have to address the process by which it takes to vote. There's issues with registration. We have a lot of reforms in the process that need to occur. So
Amen.
I know that we're going to get to work on that.
Amen. Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, thank you for your time tonight, and I now release you to go back to trick-or-treating. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Take care.